What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Johnny G for Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you very much for joining me for this Midday Monologue Monday. It is a blusterous day out here in Inwood Hill Park. But I did want to do more filming outside. I used to do a lot of filming pre-pandemic outside, especially for my Monday and Tuesday episodes. So I'm just trying to get back to that. Now, there's something in Dungeons and Dragons that either gets completely ignored, which really isn't a bad thing, or something that gets completely abused. Now, as you've seen from the thumbnail, you know what I'm talking about. Animals in Dungeons and Dragons. All right, I'm going to use an old-timey term here because there's too many arcane users nowadays. I'm just going to say magic users to cover wizards, sorcerers, and even, in some versions of the game, using feats to acquire a pet, a familiar for something like a warlock is possible. But yeah, so let's talk about this. They're not the only ones. No, you have druids and rangers also do get the opportunity to have animal companions during the course of their game. So let's talk about this. Animals in Dungeons and Dragons. I understand, depending on the class and also to a degree the edition, I understand the idea that there may be some animals in the game. Magic users particularly. Especially if the magic users want to go for a familiar. That's that little animal companion. Sometimes if you have feats, you can improve it. Might end up being a fairy dragon or an imp or something. But basically, it's usually a small animal like a mouse or a frog. Or something a little bit larger like maybe a crow, right? But that's it. That's what we're talking about as far as basic familiars go for wizards. Rangers and druids, they get theirs a little bit later in levels. I'm basically going on 3rd edition and prior. So theirs can be a little bit, bigger, larger, more imposing of animals. Now, one of the big differences between having a familiar and an animal companion or pet is the training. Like, you can train a familiar, but basically they have this connection with the magic user and telepathic, emotional, empathetic connection. So they have a deeper understanding of what their master needs from them. But they're still animals, okay? Even with rangers and druids and their animal companions, you're talking about training animals. But again, you're talking about animals. Now, a lot of times, this is kind of forgotten, left at the wayside, so to speak, unless you have a very persistent druid or ranger player. And in the older systems, I remember in advanced D&D, the cavalier with their horse as a class. That horse was with them everywhere. So, let's just remember, they're still animals. At higher levels, familiars, animal companions may get larger intelligences than the normal, wild, feral animal of their breed, but they're still never going to be beyond that of maybe, generally speaking, never beyond that of a small child, a 4-year-old maybe, or a 5-year-old at best. And if they can't fly, or their paws are not hands-like a monkey's, and monkey is not even normally a standard for familiar. How are they going to, maneuver through ladders? Movement can be a problem for them. You're going to be carrying them the whole time? Unless, maybe your crow, obviously, or parrot can fly. And some are small enough, like a mouse could make it down a ladder. But your dog? You got a dog familiar? How's that getting down the damn ladder? You got to carry it. Okay, there are bigger problems than ladders in dungeons. Transversing pits is another thing. Who can jump further, your mouse or you? You might be able to make it over the pit. Is your mouse on you at the time? See, now the reason I bring that up is because that raises another problem. Sending your animal companion out to do things, especially when you're, thinking of the arcane users, the magic user classes. A lot of them will use it to deliver a touch spell. So you're actively, let's think about this now. You're actively sending your prized friend. Because when you're dealing with a familiar, it's a deeper connection than even an animal companion has with a ranger or druid. There's a deep an actual spiritual bond going on here. So now you're talking about sending this more than a pet, this part of your soul, right into the middle of combat to deliver a touch attack against a dragon, some orcs, kobolds. You're literally putting it in harm's way. Think about it this way. Do you, the one watching this right now, do you have a pet? Have you ever had a pet? Would you bring your pet into an unknown dungeon where you know there's a possibility of there being monsters in there? Are you really going to bring your dog or cat or parrot or snake or whatever the hell you have as a pet? You really going to bring that into some unknown, highly dangerous, probably kill you environment? Now, in the past, we have used animals in war. We have used animals in policing. But I think the big problem here is most players of Dungeons & Dragons, when they come across the concept that they can have a pet, their character can have a pet in D&D, a familiar, an animal companion, whatever you want to call it, they get gooey-eyed. They do. Because they think of a hero's pet the way it's portrayed in television shows, movies, and novels. And in those cases, these animals really are portrayed as a lot more than animals. The intelligence level they have, the wisdom they have, the understanding of the human world, mechanics. No, it's completely unbelievable. Now, I can hear there's some people already screaming, John, but you can train pets. There's Hollywood-trained animals. Yes, there are. And when you put that percentage against a percentage of people that just happen to own animals, it's what is it, 1% or less? And these are individuals who have dedicated almost all of the time of their day to do absolutely nothing but teach these animals how to do the simplest of commands. So it can be edited together in a movie or a television show so it looks like these animals are as smart and as wise as humans and have as much of a deep understanding of how mechanics and locks and stuff work. They don't. So now maybe you're arguing, well, John, you gotta let loose a little bit. You gotta relax. This is fantasy. Well, that's all up to the dungeon master now, isn't it? How far your dungeon master wants to take his or her campaign as far as animals go, animal intelligences go. Because you got to remember that in a lot of cases, especially if it's a familiar, the death of this animal is going to be absolutely devastating on the character that it's connected to. Absolutely devastating. On the level of seeing your child murdered in front of you. Well, I'm sorry, YouTube. Unalived in front of you. Like nobody knows the damn difference between those words. Really. Let's just get down to brass tacks. Does this make sense? I mean, I've read of dungeon masters that really don't allow it. And if you insist on it, they'll just make sure that pet of yours becomes a target. Now, is that fair? I'm not going to sit here. That's a different video to talk about the morals and ethics of fairness of what dungeon masters do and don't do and roll for and really roll for and don't roll for. That's a completely other video. We're talking right now specifically about the animal aspect of it. There's other problems, too. Do you take in consideration food? Now you're going to have to be feeding and giving water to these animals as well as the party members. And animals leave traces of themselves. Urine spottings here and there to identify spots. So any monster with scent or any animal that you're trying to avoid is going to be having a much easier time following you because of your animal companions and familiars. Do you actually play them out intelligent-wise as animals? Probably not. Like I said, some dungeon masters don't allow it. I will. I like to think I'm a little fair. If you put something in danger, it might very well die. And I don't want to hear shit if it does. Because you're the one that put it in danger. What do you think? Am I being too harsh about this, or am I being too lenient? Because I've seen both sides of this fence. So this is where I'm standing on it. Here's my train. I gotta go. No, that's how I think it's silly. I understand from a writing point of view, from an adventure telling point of view, TV, movies, things like that, even comic books, how it makes sense. But does it really? And how are you going to deal with it? How do you deal with it? Put it in the comments, not just for me, but for everyone else to know. Thank you for joining me. I'm your buddy Big John AG for Two Gun Pixies Midday Monologue, and I am out of here.